Hello, beautiful ladies. I am actually jumping in to all of the podcast episodes at the moment because we have actually been putting together a really awesome new part of this business of the HA Society, which are retreats. And our very first ever retreat is happening this September on September 22nd to 25 in Sedona, Arizona. If you don't know Sedona, Arizona, if you've never been there before, you need to get on the Google right now and you need to look at how beautiful it is. So, we actually soft launched the trip and we filled all of the spots, but as life would have it, the the lifeguards came in and said to a couple people, surprise, like you're pregnant, or surprise, some things have come up. And those people unfortunately had to pull out. But what that does mean is that we have two spots left. So we really want to fill them. So I wanted to get on here and tell you about the rest retreat, right? So we have decided to put together these retreats for women to come together, carve out time and space for personal development, really like reconnect with yourself, create some amazing friendships along the way, hang out with me and Ashley and Mishi, and really immerse yourself in nature, essentially, as well as in the presence of like real female relationships. So we want to meet you in real life on a girls' trip, absent of, oh my gosh, like I've been eating so bad and like I need to look a certain way. And no, like none of that. We're all in this together. We're all like minded. Some of us have HA, some of us are recovered. And I just want us all to get together and like connect with other women who get it and have been through what we've been through. So at the time you're hearing this, we have had a couple spots of the trip open up and I want to offer them to you. So go to the hasociety.com/retreat. You will see information on there for this upcoming retreat, as well as another upcoming retreat to California in March. And you can fill out the interest form and select which trip you're interested in. And those of you who select the Sedona trip, I will reach out immediately after, give you the details, and see if you want to join us. So we would love to have you there. To tell you a little bit more about the trip, we are basically renting a big house. We're all going to hang out together for 2 full days, road tripping from Phoenix into Sedona. I'm going to drive a car. Ashley's going to drive a car. Food is all provided. Activities are all included in the trip. So we're going to go horseback riding. We're going to do some really awesome hikes. Ashley and I have done a couple Sedona trips, so we are really familiar with the area. So we chose it because we feel that we could be excellent guides for that trip. And on the way, we're going to do a whole bunch of personal development work and getting to know each other and really just have a sort of a transformative experience on a girls' trip that's like actually calm and relaxing. It's all planned for you. You're just going to show up and enjoy the ride and build some solid friendships. And like we're all going to be best friends forever. You know what I mean? So if you're interested, please go to thehasociety.com/retreat. Fill out the interest form on there and let us know if you want to come to the Sedona trip or, just if you want to go to the future Joshua Tree trip in California or check out any of the other future trips, head over there. But we would love to have you on this trip September 22nd to 25th in Sedona, Arizona. Please come hang with us. We cannot wait to meet you in real life. Welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, your host, certified fertility awareness practitioner, functional nutrition counselor, and founder of the HA Society, and of course, an HA recovery coach who has walked where you currently are walking. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. So let's dive in. But last thing, nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice, so please seek the advice of your physician. Hey guys, welcome back to the HA podcast. It is time for a recovery journey story today. I'm joined by Jillian. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello. It's been a while since we spoke, and so we haven't caught up much, but I know that when we first spoke, you had a baby, now you have another baby. There was a whole journey. I got to talk to you throughout your kind of like your second round through all of this kind of thing. And I remember a lot histories of exercise and short luteal phases. And so there's so much to kind of dive into. But I really want that to be your job today. So it's so good to see you again.
Thanks, you too. Thank you.
Yeah. And like, let's just dive in. Who are you? Where do you live? And where does your story begin?
Okay. I'm Jillian, and right now I live in New York. I live in Astoria, which is really close to the city. And I work
Mm.
in Manhattan. I grew up in North Carolina, and I never thought I would end up in New York, but our plan was to go to Colorado, but we ended up staying here. So anyway,
Okay.
I'm a physical therapist, and I used to be a gymnast, and now I get to work with gymnasts, which is really fun for me. And I work with all kinds of other people too. Um, and I think my story probably starts back when I was a gymnast, but I didn't know that it started until much, much later. But when I was a gymnast, there were people on our team who were like losing their periods all the time. It was no big deal. It would come and go. I never lost mine, but I just knew people who it was like during competition season, maybe they would, and then maybe, or summer training, maybe they would or wouldn't. It was just part of the deal, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And then I went through college. I didn't compete gymnastics in college. But I always had a pretty regular period, and it was always really, really painful. Um, and sometimes there would be migraines involved too. So when I heard about IUDs, I was like, sounded like the perfect thing. It would be birth control, and the pill didn't work for me because of the migraines. And so sometime around grad school, I got an IUD, and then sometime shortly after grad school, I started CrossFit. So sometime along there, I lost my period, um, and then it wasn't until like 10 years later when I was trying to have a baby that I realized that might have been the beginning of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so after, let's see, I got married in 2015. So right around then I went off. Either got my IUD out, or I may have switched back to oral birth control at some point in there. And then I just was like waiting for my period to come back, and a year went by and I had no period, and I started to do some research, and like, back then, I'm so old. Back
Mm-hmm.
then it was hard to find stuff. I feel like you've done such a good job of bringing so much of it to the forefront, and like
Thanks.
it's so much easier to find. At least, I mean, now it's in like my own little echo chamber of like I'm seeing it all over the place,
Yeah.
but
But now
maybe it's
like
still.
you can Google my period is missing and you can find this information. So
Yeah.
yay.
Yeah,
Yay,
yeah.
everyone.
And the information just goes deeper and deeper, like all the physiology and stuff that you can learn about now is so great. And then thank you for putting it all in your on your app and stuff. It's so cool. Um so I had gone to the doctor who was just like, do a progesterone challenge. And
Progesterone, yeah.
after reading that and knowing a little bit more about um my body, I was thinking like, I don't think this is gonna do anything, and it didn't. So it just so happened that working in PT, I was working with this doctor, and she wanted to send us some people, and she was like, "Come by my office. I'll give you a complimentary DEXA scan, like just for fun." She's like, "You're not pregnant, are you?" And I was like, "No, but as a matter of fact, like we like to be, but I'm having trouble getting my period back." And she's like, "Well, I don't think a DEXA scan is going to solve it, but just come in anyway. I want you to see the office." So I went in, we did a DEXA scan, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, your bone density." She works with a lot of old ladies. She's like, "Your bone density is the best I've ever seen," which was like pretty encouraging. And she's like, "But your body fat percentage is really low. No chance you're having a baby anytime soon." And she's like, "You're obviously wasn't underweight, but she's like, I think your muscle to fat ratio is off." And I hadn't really heard it put like that
Mm-hmm.
before. And it was around that time that I had read Nicola's book, No Period, Now What? And so it was like all the pieces were kind of finally coming together about a year after I got married. So um, I I I just couldn't believe that I would need to gain weight after I had read her book, and I was like, I just can't believe I would need to gain weight. But then after having the DEXA scan, I was like, but I can understand why I might need to gain body fat, as
Mm.
I've always been kind of lean and muscular coming from a gymnastics background. But in the back of my head, I was like, I was a super lean gymnast. I had like rock solid abs and I never lost my period. But it was really painful. And looking back, I now know I had like super short luteal phases and I had other symptoms that I didn't know were like
It was
symptoms.
on its way out.
So
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, it must have been like right on the edge. And I bet if I hadn't had an IUD and I had just been doing CrossFit and whatever, it probably still would have gone away. But I figured it had just gone away because of the IUD. I didn't realize there was a correlation, I guess.
Mm.
So so I read that book and then I just followed the advice in there to stop exercise, eat more, and I think it was about after 3 months of doing that, I must have ovulated because I ended up getting pregnant. I still never had a period, but I got pregnant. And I was like, great, this
It
is all I
happens. Like,
wanted.
this happens so surprisingly often.
I,
Oh,
well, and in the book, like I realized the language she was using was kind of, I'm sure she was not trying to be sneaky because whatever, it's just the research, but the research says got pregnant within 3 cycles. It doesn't say 3 periods. And as like the first time reading through, I was like, oh, I just 3 months. Like that's all it's going to take is 3 months. That's no big deal. And then reading it through a second time, I was like, oh, it says cycles, and that might take a lot longer. So I
mm.
packed it in for like the long haul. So I was kind of surprised when I got pregnant in 3 months, but I was happy for it. So I think by that point, I had done a little more work anyway, and I had realized like I was taking all these supplements and everything, and I was just thinking like, this is the thing I've been. This is the elephant in the room. Like, I'm just gonna have to stop CrossFit, and I'm just gonna have to like, if I really want to have a baby, I'm just gonna have to buckle down and do this. So I think are we supposed to say like how much I gained, or we don't say
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Do whatever you want.
I gained like 25 pounds. So I'm like normally like a buck 35 or so, and which always surprises people because I'm short, but I'm muscular. And I think I went up to like around 150 or yeah, I don't know, whatever. I think it was around 20 pounds I gained. Um, so I was pregnant, and then and that's all I did. I ate and stopped exercising, got pregnant. I was like, sweet. When I'm done with this pregnancy, I'm gonna go back to doing what I was doing, and I can lose all this weight and not worry about it ever again. But after my daughter turned 2, we decided we wanted to have another baby. And by that time, I had taken off all the baby weight and then some, and I never had gotten my period back from being pregnant. And I might be messing up my timeline a little bit. I think she was coming up on 1.5 and we decided. And then that's when I was like, okay, I guess I have to start eating more again and stop exercising again. And that's when I found all of your stuff. And especially listening to the calls and being in the group, um, I realized like I never sorted through the mental component of everything. So let's see the timeline here. So I did slow down my exercise, but I didn't completely stop this time. Um,
Mhm.
I stopped running. I was just doing more yoga, and I swapped out a bunch of my. I have been doing some weight training and some kettlebells, and I swapped all of that out for meditation, which I felt like a pretty good substitute, and some naps. So let's see. So then I gained weight, and I was like, I was talking to you, and I think I had a couple of calls with Ashley too to talk about the mental side of things a little bit more, and that
Mm.
was really helpful because that was the work I hadn't done the first time. And I finally felt like a huge shift in my mindset, which was no longer like I'm gonna have this baby and then I get to take the weight off again. Like I didn't. I felt like finally like I wasn't packing all of this into my identity anymore, and that felt really liberating. for as long as I can remember, my identity was being a gymnast and being an athlete and being a CrossFitter and being fit and small. And now my identity was shifting to, well, I'm a mom and I would like to have another baby. Um and I'm more able and willing to let go of this part of my personality, and I can still be active, but it's important to make this big shift. So um and I felt like for the second time, like happier, and I wasn't worried about the miles per week, and I wasn't worried anymore about the calories again. And like, when I first joined the HA Society, I was like, I can't believe I'm finding myself here again. I already did this work, and I already know what I need to do, and I can't believe I did this again to myself.
That's
So,
frustrating.
yeah. But I did get my period back. I don't know, in April or so. And then I was working with you on charting my cycles, and I was having still some short luteal phases. And um, you suggested that I cut out caffeine, and I was like, no, I only have like 50 milligrams a day. I sleep pretty well. I'm not going to. And you were like, oh, maybe just try it. And so I did, and it fixed everything.
Yes.
So,
I
and I
recall,
didn't
I was
die.
like, it was either it was like, I remember it was either caffeine or it was like protein. I remember you were also like running to work or something like that,
Yeah,
during
it's
that
in
time.
in New York, it's well, it was like kind of COVID around then, and I was like, anytime I don't have to be on the train. Also, the trains are kind of slow. I think I can probably book it and make it faster. It's only like 4 miles to work, and sometimes it takes me an hour to get home on the train. So I was like, I think I can beat the train. And so I started
Mm.
running home from work a lot, and then double, like I didn't have to be on the train, and I was getting home faster than the train, and I was getting my exercise in. So it was like really a good system, but except for the fact that I was having no period and underweight again. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so we were tracking my cycles. We fixed my cycles by cutting out caffeine, and I had swapped out a bunch of exercise for mental exercise or like just meditation and stuff. And I found myself, and this frustrates me so much, but I found myself being more patient with my daughter and more energetic at work. And like I knew I
Wow.
knew what I was doing, and I still like went through those like but it just like it feels I'm so forward facing in my job as a physical therapist, where, and I know like so many people on this podcast have said this, where like my patients comment on my body all the time. And since it's and there's mirrors all around the office, and it's like as soon as I was pregnant, people noticed, and as soon as I was losing the baby weight, people noticed. And it's like people saying things like, oh, last time I saw you, you were huge. And like it gets to you no matter how hard you try. It gets to you. it's it's a tough business being like forward facing in front of people all the time. So um let's see, so I got pregnant the second time in January.
I
Yeah,
think
so I
it
think we
took you
started.
like 3 months or 4 months of just like letting your body adjust to the slight changes to get like a day added to your luteal phase at a time.
Yeah, and I
Mm.
also read the book, It Starts with the Egg, which, oh, I had a fertility consult somewhere in there because I was like, I just want to make sure that there's no scar tissue in my uterus, or there's no like, I want to get an egg follicle count. Like, I just want to know, I need to know mentally that like
Anatomically is
yeah,
yeah.
everything's in working order. I'm 30. I was 35 trying to get pregnant. So I was like, I'm considered advanced maternal age. Like, I just need to know everything is working. So I had a fertility consult, and the lady I talked to was really blunt and was like, "You're 35. It's going to take you more than a month probably. And in the meantime, you can work on your egg quality and read this book." So I read it, and there were some supplements I decided to try, but I was only most of them take like 3 or more months, and like I was only on them for like 2 months before I got pregnant. So I don't know if they helped or not, but um, yeah. So I got my period back in, I don't know, some like April. Then I think I was pregnant by the next January. So and then I had a normal a normal pregnancy, except I did have COVID in the middle, which was terrible.
Mm.
And yeah. And then the baby was born in October, and he is like a breastfeeding champion. Started like latched immediately, easy to breastfeed, eats like from the very first day was eating like 15 minutes on one side, 15 minutes on the other side, just like textbook great eater. And so I was shocked at 6 months postpartum when I got my period back because I
Mm.
had been losing some weight, and um but I've been really like keyed into my diet this time. So there was diet, and then I think I said this to you in email, but I think the real reason I got it back so quickly postpartum this time was because I had done the mental work and a little bit more physical work prior to getting pregnant. Like we really fixed my cycle prior to getting pregnant this time, and I really fixed my mindset. So I didn't come out of this pregnancy guns blazing, like trying to lose the weight. So my
Mm.
body was just maybe getting
Intentions.
back to yeah. And I decided to go on a light antidepressant, like the mildest, but just something for postpartum because I knew I was going to be inside all winter with two children. And I was like, I usually get a little seasonal depression anyway. So I was like, let's just give this a go. And I think being on a little light antidepressant probably also helped with like the mental stress load of everything, cortisol and all of
Okay.
that.
Yeah. I mean, that it makes sense that that the body would respond to you approaching your postpartum period from like that period of time postpartum from a place of kind of going more with the flow, right? Like I also lost a lot of weight during pregnancy personally for me, unintentionally, but that's just
Oof.
like, where life went. And that's not common. That's typically not most people's experience, but it wasn't intentional. There wasn't this like restriction behind it, right? It's more
Right.
just like what I'm going for, what I'm trying to do. And at the end of the day, if you've had some periods, you're going to have like you are in a better spot, like better homeostasis kind of spot. You can handle more, you can have two children, you can be busier, you can be more tired if you're not also trying to get to the gym every day and show up in that way for everyone. And that's
Yeah.
something that like having kids will force your true priorities to come to the top, right? And you're either going to be an almond mom, if you've like heard that term, it's like such a good term. You're either going to be an almond mom or you're going to be there, doing what's most important. And I think that for most people reaps post-period recovery, postpartum recovery, even when you're breastfeeding. And that's
Yeah.
really freaking cool. Have
And
you had more since?
well, no, kind of one little small one, but
Mm-hmm.
I did notice a big drop in my milk supply at 6 months. I think that's really why I got it. I mean, if it was
Yeah.
gonna come, it was gonna come then, but he kind of ramped back up and I felt my supply go back up. And so I think we kind of just went back into like more intense breastfeeding. He got sick, so he's like nursing a whole bunch more and like, yeah, I think it's probably because of that. But it's only been 2 months. I wasn't expecting to be like super regular yet anyway. But I
Yeah, I
had
mean,
like
that
one
makes
one other
sense
light
because
one.
it is really surprising that you got your cycle back at that time. So that makes
But
perfect sense.
I've been having like some ovulation signs and stuff, so I don't think it's far off. Like I don't think I'm sucked into the same pattern as before. And so but I'm my first kid is a girl and I'm so happy to have like I mean I feel like if you asked me 15 years ago, do you have body positivity? I would have said, yeah, absolutely. But I didn't really. And now I
I'm
really do.
positive that
And so
I'm
that's
jacked and lean.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Now I feel like I can use healthier language around her and like set a better example and all this, except that when I was pregnant, when I was in my bathing suit, she did laugh hysterically at me. So there was
Oh,
that.
I know. I mean, I said some
Uh,
choice shit to my mom too. So, but yeah, that's part of why we have to be like, in a mental state for it. And I so sorry, finish your story. I have questions, but I want you to finish
That's
before
pretty
I
much
do.
it. I just had one other thing that I've been thinking about lately, which is that all of the products, and things that I had purchased because I was in HA, and it was like I was even down to like I bought a silk pillowcase for my hair that was breaking, and I was buying all these creams for my face because my skin was terrible, and I had bought like an endless number of like energy supplements because my energy was so low, and like the list goes on and on, and I was making a little list, but it's on my phone and now I'm using my phone so I can't see it, but I was making a list of things because it was just like all these things kept coming to mind of like things that just to mask the symptoms of HA really was the bottom line.
Yeah. Just this realization that we will invest in any and everything we can so that we don't have to change sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't know, right? Like I see so much advertising for products for like symptoms that reek of low hormone function,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's what I'm talking about.
they're talking about it like this just happens to women. It's not you or anything you're doing. Like I'm not gonna say brands, but like this like vegan hair serum and this ad, I'm sure people listening have seen this ad because it's everywhere. And they're just like, I'm obsessed with this hair serum. My hair was falling out. And ever since I got this like vegan hair serum, hair growth serum,
Yep.
I'm like, bro. And like, I'm looking at you on the video and I'm like, you are hungry. You don't
Right.
need this serum. Like, but so we're like, as a culture, normalizing your body just not working. Like some people's body just doesn't work. That's just how it is. So you buy this product. And so we just
Yeah.
do it.
Well, including and then also, I think it was either on here or on, Lisa's podcast where
Mm.
somebody was saying, like, there's no such thing as unexplained infertility. There's an explainable it's explainable. It's just
You just
yeah.
can't explain it.
Right. Right.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like IBS. Oh, you just have irritable bowel syndrome.
Right.
No,
Right.
there's a reason. It's not just like happening. Um, it's pretty crazy. And we're all just I could tell you so many of them that I'm coming across that I'm like, oh, this like Raynaud's syndrome. They've all got
Mhm.
Raynaud's syndrome, which is just poor
Yeah.
circulation.
Cold all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, you don't have a syndrome. You are so yeah, I think that's we haven't talked about that point much at all. Of like the amount of money that we invest in hacks for what we're doing, right? Like
Yeah.
you could fix
Totally.
your hair breaking, or a hack would be that you just stop, like you just take better
Why is
care
my
of the
hair
fragility
breaking?
of it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I was all these different shampoos I was trying, my hair was like falling out and like, yep. Yeah, all I had to do was I mean, my hair is it was falling out because of postpartum and it's already growing
Mm.
in much better now than it ever was when I was doing CrossFit and eating like 1,200 calories a day.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen no matter what. The postpartum hair fall, that's a different issue entirely. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
an
yeah.
issue. That's just it's a totally normal thing. But yeah, like the rate at which it grows back, like the sooner you look silly and you have to have the little flyaways, the better. Like that's great progress. And so we kind of went through your story very like, I did this and then I realized I'm going to have to buckle in and do it. And so I did it and then I got pregnant and then that was easy. And then I went back and then, this was a bit tough. I was a bit annoyed. I had a short luteal phase. Then we resolved it. I just had to drink less coffee and then I got pregnant. Like it's easy kind of for that to sound like a short journey, but I remember it being a long, like being a long journey for you. I wasn't there from the beginning, from your first child, right? But I
Yeah,
remember talking to you about that process and kind of you being in the sort of the, it's so much easier to tell the story, but when you're actually in the timeline of waiting for,
sure.
like, should I make this change? And now I've made the change. How long till the change works? I'm not sure if I'm seeing an improvement, or my temps look worse this week than they looked last week.
Oh yeah.
All that stuff. You talk a lot about this mental piece that you hadn't done yet. You hadn't done the mental piece, but I'm really curious, like, what was the mental piece? What were, or is the part that has made something seemingly so simple, exercise less, gain some body fat kind of thing? Why was that a problem for you kind of time and time again? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it comes back to the identity piece that like I didn't yeah, I thought my priorities were, you know, having a six pack and having this like image of how I presented and um I had it so wrapped up in my identity. And it was like it's who I was at work. Like I've always been able to beat all the boys on pull-up contests and I can do muscle ups and I can like this is part of who I am and I wasn't ready to give that up. And I think becoming a
Yeah.
mom the first time um it, on one hand made me ready to say like, well, being a mom is a bigger part of my identity than being someone who can do pull-ups. So like that helped, but at the same time there's all this pressure of like lose the baby weight, lose the baby weight, lose the baby weight. And so
Yeah.
um but it was easier for me to put things on hold, like going to the gym for my daughter. That was easy. And so I think that was the beginning of like breaking that piece of who I was. But yeah, it was like, I mean, it was almost 2 years from the time I stopped birth control till my first pregnancy. And then it was um almost a full year from the time that we decided we wanted to have another kid to when I got pregnant, maybe even a little over a year. So yeah, it's easy to say because it's all in hindsight. Um, but there are lots of little like nitpicky details of like trying this supplement and I guess I have to stop CrossFit, but I'm gonna just do it one more month. I'm just gonna get through this competition and then I'll stop.
Mm.
And there were all these little pieces of you kind of like and I would every time I go back home, I go to my old gymnastics gym, say hi to the coaches and the owner. And like I didn't want to go back in there. If I had to gain all this weight, like I'm gonna wait till after I go home. And I don't want them to see me not in gymnastic shape. Like that's not I don't want to be that ex-gymnast that gained all that weight. And so
Oh, that's
because they would be
interesting. Do you feel
mm,
like they would think something
no.
in that
No,
culture?
I know
No.
they wouldn't. I'm like, these are some of my friends from when I was really young. And if they did, I mean, whatever. Like, then that's what I feel like now. Like, this is what I needed to do to have the two children who I now like. I'm so incredibly happy and I love them so much. And it doesn't matter anymore. I don't care. So if I am that person, then whatever. But no, everybody I ever used to work out with has kids, and so does the owner. So like everybody gets it. I think like you think people are going to see you away, but then maybe when you step out of your own head, you kind of see that everybody just isn't going to look at you like that, or whatever. I was so worried about everyone thinking like they weren't thinking it, or they have already experienced something, and it's not all about me. Like it's not as self-centered as you think it is, or as I thought it was.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel too with the whole, like, they're not really thinking that piece, is that even if they are, right? Oh, she let herself go or whatever. Like, the fact that they thought that never changed a thing. It
Yeah,
never
sure.
mattered, right? And we all like look to people who are so, God, and that person lives their life. They don't give a fuck about what anyone else thinks. Like, that's so inspirational. Like, we do appreciate that about people usually, right? Within,
Yeah.
certain boundaries. But for ourselves, that is not okay. And I think that that's really fascinating. I mean, I don't have the answers to that because I observe that in myself all the time. Like, there's a version of my life that I want to live that has nothing to do with the perception of others. And then there's my actions,
Mm,
which could be perceived as different. And we see that in HA all the time. I want to have a baby. However, I am
mm.
working out like a gymnast, for example, is like,
Yeah.
and so the goal and what we want, and we'll get on a call and it's like they're hiring you because they want this goal. And then we look at their life and it's not relevant to the goal. And this can happen subconsciously. It's
Oh, yeah.
fascinating. And then we have to discuss it. Well, like, I know we want to get pregnant, but do you think that, you know, everyone else trying to get pregnant is running 80 miles a week?
Oh my God, but it's so frustrating to see the people on Instagram, which is like another thing. I had to just like shut that down. I actually started a
Okay.
new account and only started following like, I mean, while I was trying, now I don't care,
Right.
um, I started a new account that was like just for me, just with like crafts and comedians and art.
Yes.
Cause I like hadn't with no friends, like nobody's on there that I know. Cause I just couldn't look at like, yeah, because there are people on Instagram. I mean, there's one woman and she like pops up on the suggested thing for me all the time who's like sprinting and she's like whatever, 8 months pregnant and she's like got one in tow. And I'm just like, how? But that's like that's not the norm. That's not the norm.
It's
And
not the
I
norm, and
think
it's not the whole
people
picture.
once I was pregnant, and either the first or second time, I looked at the hashtag fit pregnancy just so I could like bang my head against the wall. And like it's crazy. People are crazy.
People are
It's just
crazy.
wow. It's
And it's like, it's
wild. I mean, and
not the whole picture. It's so like, I could have been pregnant and then like gotten a quick clip of myself doing something hard, and then I'd
sure.
sit down for the rest of the day. Like, let's
Yeah.
be real.
Yeah.
But that's just the social media thing is such an underrated piece, because a lot of us struggle with comparison, and I saw this person say that, or I just can't let go of this identity. It's like, literally,
Yeah.
you're so heavily influenced by what you're around, that I can guarantee that if you go and cleanse yourself of all that rubbish on your feed and just make it crafts and comedians,
Yeah.
like, the physically, triggers are real things. And if
Yeah.
you're around people or in situations, we're in the middle of a group program right now, and one of the awesome girls, she was like, I went to a music festival this weekend, and that was really, really hard, because a music festival is just a giant runway of
Oh yeah, right. Right.
girls
It's
like
a trendy
walking
thing.
around. It's a trendy thing. People like, worse than Halloween, you know what I mean? People wearing all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy things that are very scandalous, and it's just like a self-comparison festival, really. As you have to be so careful about it during that time, about your environment and what you're looking at and who you're seeing, and you can't expect yourself to just be tough and get over it
Right.
and think differently. You really have to step in and experience a different environment to let yourself heal.
Yeah, and I think that that was a big part of what I got to do on the second round of HA recovery was
Mm.
like that's the part I tackled was like I didn't realize what all those things and kind of working in the industry too in a way in physical therapy. Like I here I am telling my patients like to be more active and like as I'm actively gaining weight, I'm just like, "Oh, I'm telling you, you need to get out and walk more as I'm packing on the pounds." But it is what it is.
Because context matters, doesn't it? It also just shows you how not black and white everything is, right? How telling
Yeah.
everyone that weight loss is health is just like always the best thing is so dangerous.
Right.
'Cause
Sure.
well, yeah. I could
It
see that. And I
also,
know that in roles like that, jobs like yours, how clientele potentially see you physically is a narrative that's playing in your head.
um, this has also given me the tools to speak to some of my gymnast patients about their periods and ask, like,
Yes.
very comfortably ask, what's it like? How long is it? Are you dying? Are you out of the gym when you have it? Is it that bad? And how many days? Like, you should start charting. Like, take a look at this. Like, I have one of the girls I work with, she's 18. Her mom is a nurse practitioner, and she and I like worked a lot together with on her daughter's cycle to just like, is she getting enough calories? Is she getting enough sleep? Like, it was kind of cool to be able to help her with that from the other side. Because her mom was
Yeah.
like very concerned about bone density and all that, and if she's going to compete in college, then she wants her to be set up on uh like a she know how to handle herself so that she doesn't run into that issue, because in gymnastics, especially in the world now, it's not about who can be the skinniest, it's about who can be the most powerful. And so we're really starting to see a shift, which is great.
And who can be
To
the most like consistent, like who can not get hurt
Mhm.
enough to
Yeah,
train enough
injury is
to compete
huge.
enough.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's even, it's funny to see some of the smaller, like China's the example, their athletes are very petite and small, and some of them can't really do the bigger tricks that some of the Americans can do because they can't pack the punch from, like, they don't have the muscle. So it's kind of nice that the sport is shifting.
Yeah. And I'll say from like a weightlifting perspective, China has the potential, Chinese
Well,
people have the potential to be powerful and strong. But yeah, they're just not ready to train in that way and change that and give up height, right? And
sure,
rotations
sure.
for, or like whatever, however the hell it works. I'm not a gymnast. But like your profession, and there are like lots of people in similar professions, right? Personal
Yeah.
trainers, coaches, um, yeah, physical therapists and stuff. Like, it's all well and good, like good to be an HA coach, but people need to know about it and it needs to be applicable to their real life. And for the most part, it doesn't come to people. Like, everyone has well, not everyone, but most people have a bit of a roundabout way of getting here to this
Yeah.
podcast, to this community. But if you can be like 18 and have your physical therapist be like, how's this
Mm.
going? Because it's important for your bone density and performance and longevity in sport. Well, okay, great. Someone's finally planted the seed and now she knows that and she can't unknow that. She can make
Yeah.
mistakes, but she can't like unknow it. And that's really where this stuff needs to happen and where the education needs to be put. I can imagine, I mean, it's like a rant for another day, but that like physical therapy school probably just doesn't focus enough on things like that with clients. It's a lot more, is it a lot more like manual and corrective stuff, but not a whole lot of like root cause?
They have to cram so much into a 3-year curriculum because we have to learn everything about, like, neuro, like people who have stroke,
Mhm.
people who have TIA, people who have motorcycle injuries, people who are acute care, wound care. Like, they pack so much into 3 years that they basically do like a couple lectures on Red S or whatever. And so we know to look out for it. And then you can always, there are specialty certifications that'll focus more on that kind of thing. If you're interested in going down that road, working with athletes and stuff. But
Mhm.
nothing like cycle charting or anything like that. But I'm so happy to have my own personal experience to like pull from, and then like I can refer to you or
Yeah.
any one of the people that you've trained if somebody needs help
Yeah.
charting their cycles.
Like, it's kind of random. It's not directly applicable to all. I mean, some people are physical therapists in like aged care, but
Right.
it would at least be cool for it to be like a common continuing education or something,
Yeah.
that people.
Yeah. It should
Okay.
be part of like any of the sports curriculum that anybody wants to, if they want to get involved with sport, they should have more information on that for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. Especially like with high school athletes, for
Yes.
sure.
We see more and more girls are more like college age. It's very exciting to see that
That
becoming important.
especially not, yeah, because they're not trying to get pregnant. Like they haven't waited to the last possible second to. Yeah, the first time I was trying to get pregnant, actually, no, the first time I was pregnant and went to the doctor for the first time, I told her I had a history of HA, and she looked at me like I was crazy because she's like, "You're not underweight." Like, and I know you've heard that 400,000
Oh,
times. Like,
yeah.
she's
But it's
like, "You
funny
don't
to
look
not
like you
look at
had an issue."
you. it's funny to not look at you though and be like, you're very vascular. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah,
super lean. Like,
yeah.
what the
I
hell do
said
you
that to her. I was
mean?
like,
I
well,
think
the
your
DEXA
learning is
scan.
interesting of weight versus body fat. Like
Yeah,
I'm in a world where I assume people know that when we say weight, we mean body fat. So
yeah.
that question comes up of like, can I reverse diet my way out of this? Can I like gain muscle instead?
Mm,
Is like, they're totally different organs. It's like
yep.
needing a heart transplant and asking if we could just do a lung. It's like, these are different organs. They play different roles. Like it's super important. And so the role of body fat is so underappreciated. Everyone's just thinking that body fat is excess energy storage, point blank,
Right,
right? Like
right,
you're just carrying around baggage. You're just walking around with this. And although that is extremely important because that's a part of what the brain is hearing as a safety backup, we have backups. We have something
right.
that we can make a baby out of, but it's also really important. It makes hormones. It communicates about hormones like through the body up to the brain. It's like we just don't know about it. um
Yeah,
so I think that's a really interesting learning from this call. Is it's not just about weight, right? It's about body fat. And just because you're not like what everyone pictures someone with a missing
yeah,
period to look like, doesn't mean you don't have it. It doesn't mean that that's correct. And
yeah,
that this is a long journey that requires not just the physical changes, but also being mentally in a place where you can accept,
yeah,
your sort of shift of identity, if you will, so that you can have the goal
yeah.
you actually want and do your, like, take the actions that are conducive to your goals versus contradictory ones.
Very well said. In summary,
In summary, um, okay, if there was anyone or anything that you could say to a bunch of people currently going through it, they want to have a baby, maybe they're really struggling with letting go of certain parts of their identity, you know, free-form conscious stream of thoughts.
I had a really good thing for this and it left me. Oh no, this isn't quite that answer, but I just I was just thinking back to, I think one of the first times I ever got on one of the HA calls, everyone saying how like how your your people who are closer in your inner circle will notice, and in a good way. And like my husband absolutely noticed, like we can order whatever food we want and let's go for ice cream and you're so much happier and you're not falling off the handle about anything. And like my mom saying I was happier and feeling like I had more energy altogether at work, and like all these things just fell into place. So I love the quote that says like when you're going through hell, for God's sakes keep going. Like if it's really tough, you got to keep going. You can't don't stop, and for God's sakes don't go backwards. Like you have to keep going forwards. And you know, you have to realize that like the cycle of weight loss is, it can't be perpetual. What are you going to get down to zero? Like you can't, you can't keep living like that, like undernourished, under fueled, under energy. Like all the things can't be that low forever. And it's, even though you wear a crop top or whatever, it's just
Yeah.
not a sustainable way to live. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Keep going. And I don't know how to, tell someone how to like get over that mental hurdle, but I just remember like I think maybe hearing everybody being on some of the calls, which like I couldn't attend very much because my schedule was so packed, um but hearing a lot of people on the calls just say the exact same thing, and hearing all the other people doing it, like, okay, everyone can do it. And all these people have done it. A lot of them have done it. And a lot of people are doing it right now. And a lot of people are working harder than me. And it's not just me. Because the first time I found the information, it really felt like it was just me and the few other people in this book. So it's all over the place and it's
Mm,
rampant, and so many people are dealing with it and not talking about it or completely unaware. And just knowing that there was a lot more people out there was like a huge part of helping me get to that point of like, I can do it. I can do it, and it's worth it in the end.
yeah. Yeah. I always find that interesting. I just need to know I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't really, I guess, like, because we just don't, like, it all stems to, like, I want to be normal and accepted and, like, not like a pariah. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
so if we can just normalize, not necessarily in a way that, like, it's okay to be this way, but normalize people struggling with and working towards resolving low hormone issues, like, that would be great. But right now we're in a world where people are just normalizing having low hormone issues and getting IVF treatment and, like, just wrapping your hair in silk and things like that to just, like, get
I
through, you know what I mean?
I was gonna say it
It's,
all kind of came to a like a really nice head when it was shortly after I had gotten pregnant the first time, and a friend of mine said, I'm a friend of mine who normally wouldn't say something like this was like, I am so proud of you because we have so many friends going through IVF, and that is its own struggle, and lots of people who need it for various reasons. But a lot of people get it who probably could have sorted through the issues if they had been patient and persistent and consistent and done the work. And she was like, I'm so proud of you for putting in the work and not jumping to the, well, you can't even call IVF easy, but the easy solution.
yeah,
Jumping
it's
to
like,
the
it's,
conclusion that you needed that.
yeah, the yes, the conclusion that you needed that. And I think it's also just a testament to show we would rather, like, hands 100% certainty, I know this, that I can say this as a fact. There are people who would rather go through the IVF process, which is excruciating in terms of time and finances and extremely invasive and emotional. They would rather do that than gain a pound of weight, than not be able to wear their crop top. And it's
Yeah,
like,
it's true. And I know people who have.
yeah, we all do. And it's not okay. And that makes me really, really sad. Makes me super sad. So you should be proud of yourself, because it be
Yeah.
in because that was an option.
Yeah. Yeah. And now going into postpartum, not planning on having any more babies ever again. I'm looking forward to like cycle charting and getting the data and just watching the data without any intention. I think that'll be very
Yes,
interesting.
it doesn't have to mean anything good or bad. It's just curious. And then with
Yeah.
everything you've been through and what you know, you can look at it, kind of stay neutral, and just, like, if you need to make it just a tweak or just the next best decision with the information you have, do it.
Yeah.
If now is not the
Yeah.
time, okay. Like, it doesn't have to be such a good, bad, emotional
Right.
tool.
And we're not any under any kind of timeline. Oh, I think that also it was really helpful for me in the very beginning of the second round of HA recovery to write out. I said this on one of the calls one time, but I wrote out my HA story and I spent some time at the computer, like typing it and writing in details and like not to share with anybody, just to have it and just to see it all out there. And I felt like it was really cathartic for me to write it all down. And then I looked at it today before our call so I could remember some of the stuff. But it was really long, so I decided to try to say it all really fast. But I feel like that's a tip I would give somebody to just try writing out your whole story because you're gonna see how far you come up to this point, and maybe it won't feel like you have as far to go.
Yeah, I love that. I really like that as a cathartic exercise, and helps you kind of see how you got here in the
Yeah,
first place. Why you
yeah,
believe so strongly that it's not okay for you to do this is, like, somewhere in your path. like the
Yeah,
answer is there. I love that. It's a good
exactly.
tip. Well, thank you so much for
You're
joining
welcome.
us and sharing your story and just kind of giving back to the community, um, and passing the torch of struggle over to the next person. We really appreciate it. This was so good. And just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. This has been so amazing.
Are you listening to this show hoping to get some golden nuggets to help you on your way to recovery? Well, great. I hope that you find them because that is exactly what this show is for. But if you really want to take your recovery all the way, completely commit and get on track with your goals, whether they be finally feeling overall healthy, finally getting pregnant, or finally getting back to training, you'll want to join us inside of the HA Society. Not only is this the perfect community to ask questions and get your support and the accountability that you so often need during these uphill battles with body image and understanding nutrition and incorporating exercise, but it's also a hub of exclusive resources for HAs. All of the HA podcast episodes are released in advance and completely ad-free, so you can listen on the go to the raw, unedited versions uninterrupted. All of the one-on-one coaching calls, of which we have 2 a week in different time zones, are uploaded to our private podcast feed so that you can listen to events with practitioners and the past community calls as though they were bonus podcast episodes, because I know how much you love to listen to this kind of stuff. And in these calls, we cover requested topics like overcoming the weight gain fears, communicating with friends and family about our HA, diving into how HA works, and debunking the imposter syndrome that so many of us have around this diagnosis. There's also an entire resources section with lectures, workshops, and training from the past events that are hosted by experts like Sarah Liz King, Laura Lyons, Kaylee McDevitt, Holly Dunn, and many more. As a member, you also get direct access to myself and Coach Ashley in the DMs. So if you have personal questions or need individualized advice about your recovery, we're in there answering your questions in the DMs, as are all of our other members in the group who impress me week after week with how they show up for each other. It's incredible. It's like women are just all becoming mini coaches for each other. It's so good. The HA Society is really the place to be if you're going through recovery, no matter what stage you're at. Whether you have HA or you've got a few recovery periods, we have your back and we're all your new best friends. So come and meet us at thehasociety.com/join. That's thehasociety.com/join, and the link is in the show notes for you. Okay, on with the show. This episode is brought to you by Grassland Nutrition beef liver capsules. Did you know that in terms of nutrient density, beef liver actually blows vegetables and fruits out of the water? If you're a client of mine, you have already been instructed to eat beef liver either fresh or in capsule form. I recommend it for anyone and everyone who is, of course, dealing with amenorrhea and fertility challenges out there, but I may even recommend it for just everyone in general. Get your husbands on it, get your partners on it. If you have a history of HA and add on top of that maybe a history of the pill, maybe you've been pregnant before, through treatments or other, like your body's been through anything, you're absolutely 100% dealing with a nutrient deficiency of some kind. And while it's true that testing is going to be the best way to understand those exact deficiencies, eating nutrient-dense, real food is going to be one of the most important next steps that you take with or without testing. So I've been using and recommending Grassland Nutrition beef liver capsules for years now. And the capsule form makes it so easy to get your liver in every day. And I appreciate the transparency of this product in particular above others. So in case you're wondering, it's completely natural. This is freeze-dried beef liver in capsules. It's organic, it's made from Australian beef, and my favorite of their products is the liver with kelp because of the iodine from the kelp, which is important for overall thyroid function, which is often low in women with underperforming hormones. So Rather than eat seaweed snacks every day, I get to take this beef liver with the kelp for my iodine. So if you're recovering or working on a fertility journey right now, do not skimp the nutrient rich source of beef liver. Get 10% off your order with the HA Society and support your favorite podcast along the way. They ship to most countries, so you should be covered. Just go to grasslandnutrition.net and use HA Society, just HA Society, at the checkout for the 10% off. That's grasslandnutrition.net with the code HA Society. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women